doing today?
Oh, Lyric, I'm so glad to hear from you.
It's
I'm
good.
well. How about you?
Doing good. Doing really good today. It's good. It's delightful to see your face. I think I get to see you a little bit more than some of the other people I've talked to because you're just up north from me, up in the, where, Alexandria, DC area.
DC area, yeah. The Commonwealth of Virginia.
What does it look like up there with lockdown and all this stuff?
Well, you said look, that makes me go visual. And so I'll go on the positive side and say it's green and lush and very Seattle-like out there because we've had tons of rain.
Mm-hmm.
So the yard guys are busy and it's pretty. It's pretty. We have one beautiful day every 4 or 5 days and then it rains.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get a lot of your weather just after you get your weather. Actually, usually about the same time, but if it's big. It's funny, I love weather maps. I love weather maps. I love watching the radar. And every morning I walk and talk with my sister who lives in Chicago. And it's so interesting how so often you'll see a map of the states and she's up in Chicago and there will be a giant system that runs down all the way the East Coast. So I'm like, and you watch it move. So you're like, what you're getting today, I'll get in a day and a half.
Without the lake effect. Yeah.
Without the lake effect. Yeah. It's nice. It's
Cool.
nice.
Cool.
So Cyndi, how are you coping with being shut in and with the pandemic and all of this insanity that's happening?
It's a great question. I've thought about this. I anticipated this question, having viewed a couple of your other Covichats in preparation. I am an introvert, and I didn't know until this how very I am. So I'm okay. I talk to a few people every once in a while. I do some chats, I do some Zooms. I bring my art quilt groups, my classes that I teach. I have 2 a month, and they're not meeting as classes, but I'm bringing them in as meetings of the tribe twice a month. So we, each of us, we get together and catch up and see what's going on. And there's talk of new grandbabies, and there's talk of new grand quilts, and all kinds of quarantine kinds of topics. But yeah, that's a good thing. But I'll say, and this is maybe something that makes me a little different from some of your other folks, I'm still fully employed. I'm working 5 days a week, or 6, depending on how policy heavy we are. I'm working from home, and I invested in a standing desk so it doesn't kill me to work at home. Yeah, so I'm thankful, and I remind myself of that every day. When I get a little grumpy, I think, nope, I'm employed. I'm good. I'm safe. I'm fine.
Yeah, good. Yeah, my husband we're same here for us. Husband's at home, and also he went in after about a week and brought home his standing desk. So we have a giant dining room table. He's taken over the whole dining room. The whole place is just, he's moved his office home, and that's where he lives now. Sometimes up, sometimes down. I think he kind of likes it because he's just like, I don't have any meetings for an hour. I'm going to go for a bike ride now. And off he goes.
That's a good deal. That's a good deal.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well at that. Good. And I'm so glad to hear that you're doing well. And it's also kind of hard though, isn't it? That, well, maybe not for you, but that now that you have to work at home, how do you find a way to, because from what I've seen of people working at home, it just means they work all the time now. and how do you like cut that off and turn around and shut it off when you can't go away from it and then make time for your own creative fabulousness?
Lyric, if you write that book, I'll edit for you.
Yeah, my words need editing.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm like, I haven't quite figured that out. I'm an HR communicator. And in any company, the HR folks are working I'm going to say tirelessly, but ferociously, fiercely, on policies and trying to figure out what do our people need and how do we get it to them, and what kinds of rules do we need to accommodate the current situation, and how do we look forward to what the next situation is going to look like, which is a crapshoot, but we give it our best shot. And how do we figure out how to make that work? So we've been reactive. Tomorrow begins my 10th week in remote working or captivity or isolation, or call it whatever you want. And it's been interesting. So the people I need to contact, I get in touch with. We do a lot of IMing. We do a lot of email. There's a little bit of Zoom, but not nearly as much as you might think. So yeah, it's okay. I am working longer days, but when I want to get up, because you know that theory of creativity where your body and your mind are going to come together and they're going to tell you what you're ready to do right now. Well, they do. I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. I find if I'm walking, or if I'm doing something else without, it has to be without other input, which doesn't, it doesn't really happen, because the only time I'm getting out to exercise, because I'm really not good at making myself do it, is when I'm talking to my sister. So that fills up the brain space. But every once in a while I go out, we have a hammock in the backyard where you just lay there and look up at the trees. And it's amazing what happens. I have to rock myself. I have to keep rocking and watch the leaves just move. But it's amazing what happens then. Or shower time, right? Showers, there's something about
best
the water
idea.
and standing there that, that's a good thing.
Yes. So while I'm working, I try to pay attention. And if I'm banging my head against some sort of, I don't know, formatting issue, some sort of writing issue, the words aren't coming, things just aren't working right, I stop and I say, okay, what should I be doing right now? Because the way that my body and my mind are working together, that's not facilitating this task. So is there something else I can do? And sometimes there's something else work related, and sometimes I need to take 10 or 15 minutes to go, I don't know, do laundry. And then I'll come back and all of a sudden those words that I was looking for are surfacing. So that's the advantage.
Yeah, it's like you have a giant stew pot and you have to do all the work and throw all the ingredients in, but then you need to walk away and let it simmer for it to come together and to make sense.
We call it work and perk. Yeah.
There you go. Very good. So have you been able to work on anything creative outside of work time?
I have. It's kind of interesting. This it's probably too soon for folks to start looking at silver linings, but I honestly believe that there are some out there. I think one of them is we get to know ourselves better. Whether we like that or not may be another issue, right? But we do get to know ourselves better. And I also think that when we're in the house or in a sort of a confined space, we begin to look at it differently. And so I'm looking at my space differently. I'm 2 years into being in this condo, and my studio has not been my favorite room because studios are hard to set up. You've done it several times, probably in the same space. Exactly. So I couldn't drag myself into the studio. And now that I'm here, I've rearranged it. I'm purging things that I thought I couldn't live without, that really, why did I buy this? So yeah, the creativity's coming. So I took out an old project. I'm trying to remember the name of the company that did the pattern. It's a Dresden plate pattern cut into squares. And it was such a good idea. And so I did these Dresden plates out of this Australian Aboriginal fabric that Judy at Artistic Artifacts carries. And I know, right? So all of the fabric, I know, it's all either black or it's this Aboriginal fabric that I like to control things, and it's really all very exuberant and crazy, but I did it. And so I put them on the design wall, and because we have the time, this is the gift of time. And I know we're looking at it as it's enforced whatever solitude or whatever, but it's the gift of time. And so without a deadline to finish the quilt that I'm working on, I took the Dresdens and I did not cut them to squares right away. I put them up on the wall. And I come into the studio at the end of every night. This is a coping technique that I put together for myself, and man, does this help. I touch fabric before I go to bed. I'm not taking any of those other thoughts with me. I'm not taking the world's problems with me. I can't solve them. I can only catalog them, and that is not good for sleep. And so I touch fabric. So I'll come in, I'll play on the design wall. I'm doing this because it's behind me. You just can't see it very well. And the next morning I get up and I have a completely different thing I want to do. I want to move it around. I have like 8 iterations of this quilt, and I finally have it not nailed down, but certainly pinned down to my design wall. And that is what I'm going with. So I'm excited. I'm back in the studio. It's my favorite room in the house now. And
that's wonderful. Excellent, excellent. Do you take a photo of each iteration as you?
Oh, yes.
Isn't that the best tool ever?
Yes.
It's one of my favorite design tools when I'm improvisationally designing, is take a photo, move it, take a photo. And there's something so clear and easy to see when you look at all the thumbnails together, and you can immediately see at least which ones are terrible.
Yes.
And off they go.
And it gets rid of that what if this is the best arrangement and I can't remember it if the next one is horrible.
That's the best part. Yeah. That's what the photograph is for. Yeah, really good. I used to have my studio down on the ground floor for years and years with no door on it, because I had to be where all the kids were.
Of course.
And hear and know what they were doing. And so it would be the last thing I see as I go up to bed. And my day has always been so full of other input that that seeing that last thing before I go up to bed, not even having to turn off the light or go in, but I could see the giant design wall right as I went up the stairs. And then it would be the same thing. I'd wake up going, I think I know. I think this will work. Although sometimes I also lay awake for 3 hours going, what if this? Because it's finally a quiet time and my brain gets to work on the things I want to, right?
I hear you. So input, you've mentioned that a couple of times. So I'm sensing a theme here. There's so much input in your life. So besides the hammock, what tips can you share with the rest of us where the world is noisy in our heads? How do we shut that up? And
sometimes you can't. I mean, the only reason I'm able to, I started this journey as a quilter right after my first of 5 children. And they were spread out enough that I had toddlers home with me for 18 straight years, which is an eternity. And I just had to force the time. I would take 6-hour classes with the Quilt Guild, not caring who was teaching or what they were doing. I would just sit in a corner and have an excuse to be sewing for 6 hours. Yes, I learned the hard way to tell the teacher that this is why I'm here. Please don't take offense if I ignore what you're doing. Really, I think you're wonderful, but this is why I'm here. Now, and another thing that I think is so incredibly vital if you are so overwhelmed with input like that is to have a place, to have a space. And it doesn't have to be quiet in a way, but you have to have your own space where you don't have to spend 20 minutes getting everything out and 20 minutes putting it back, where you can just come to it for the 2 minutes you have and then go away. It's phenomenal what you can do 2 minutes at a time if you have that space. It can be in a closet. I had a friend who had a hallway coat closet, one of the tiny ones, and a card table just barely fit in it. And she hung a lamp and she put her sewing machine, and there was an extension cord and a fold-up chair, and she would just open the door in the hallway and sit down for 5 minutes and then shut the door.
Her very own Narnia.
I know, right? My first studio was just putting my sewing machine on a corner of the kitchen counter. and I'd put the pedal on the floor and sew for a second and then put it up because the kids couldn't reach it. And now my life is absolute nirvana because I have the entire third floor. I have to go up a flight of stairs. There's a door at the bottom that I shut, so I can actually shut everything out now. And my kids are old enough that they're entirely independent. I'm like the mom that you hear about, her like, oh, I'm sure they're fine with their online school stuff. And I haven't checked it in weeks, but they are.
Yeah.
If they weren't, I'd probably pay a little more attention, but I'm so lucky that they are. So I'm not the best person to answer your original question.
Oh, but this was good stuff.
Time and place. If you have constant input, you need to create a place and time for yourself, for your creative brain. It's what kept me sane through the baby trenches, through all that crazy time of my life. Even if I couldn't get done, I was frustrated a lot of times because I wanted to be making all these things and didn't have time. But, about halfway through that, I figured there will be time. There is time. And just to let go of some of the frustration. These days, just turn off your phone, turn off the television, work somewhere quiet, ignore the news for a while, and then you can take care of that input, right? I wasn't telling you to turn off your phone.
I know, but I just realized I hadn't turned off the ringer. And the last Zoom meeting we had, I went through this whole thing about muting and electronics, and then my phone rang. So I just thought, let me go just fix that.
Yeah. But we've talked about this a little bit outside of this, that it's just healthy to turn off the news for a while.
Yes.
You just have to.
And it's crazy making, trying to keep the whole art thing. It's like, how do I say this? Cirque du Soleil has all of these wonderful acts, and there's this one guy who's always there with the sticks and the plates, always. And that is how I feel right now. I'm trying to keep the stuff in the office, which is my dining room as well. And so I'm trying to keep that sort of compartmentalized. I've intentionally not brought that laptop into the studio. Mm-hmm. One, it would be way too distracting. And I don't mean the work would distract me. But two, I don't want that in here. I don't want that energy in this room.
Yeah. Keep it as your creative, there's something almost sacred about the creativity that people allow to live in their lives, and protecting it is a good thing. It's a worthwhile and good thing.
And if we can't do that, we lose a lot of the creative opportunities that I think we have. You and I have someone in common who is a student of yours, and she's a dear friend of mine now and a student as well. And she and I talk about when the quilt tells you what it needs. You've had that happen, right? And so that was the question, well, how do you hear it? How's the quilt talk to you? This quilt doesn't talk to me. Quilt's pretty quiet, And I'm like, no. And what you just said, I think is like half of the answer. Put yourself in a place where if your quilt's going to talk to you, it's the only thing that's talking to you.
Right. That's a good thing. And also, don't be afraid to mess around with it. Like, my quilts don't really talk to me unless I'm doing something with it. I have to be messing with it. If I'm sitting there just thinking about it, stressing about why isn't this right, nothing ever happens. When I get to that point, I put it away, completely away, out of sight, out of mind, until eventually, sometimes right away, sometimes not for a very, very, very long time, the idea comes back and I'm ready to come back to that piece. It's different for everybody, I think, but you do have to protect that time and headspace.
And protect that little creative soul that lives inside all of us. We just need to do that. So,
Right.
so you're doing these Covichats, which, by the way, I love. I've been binge watching. I've really enjoyed that. Um, what else are you doing? Are you making as well, or is this your creative outlet?
Um, uh, this has been keeping me going for a while. You know, the mask making. For
Oh,
a while, I just cut up all my tiny scraps left over from masks into half square triangles and mindlessly sewed them together because there wasn't, um, there's too much anxiety up there for anything really creative. And I've just started teaching live again, and that I have
cool.
found brings me alive again. And it's funny because it's like, I know I have to teach, I know I have to get this lesson ready, I know I have to make this sample, and they're all kind of have to's, but I don't teach anything I don't love. I love this.
That's
And
a big.
then I'm in the middle of making all that stuff, and then the creative, oh my gosh, I want to make this art too, turns on and happens at the same time. And then I'm back to balancing both of them. But that's,
That's a
that
good
thing where you
problem to
said,
have.
yeah, that thing where you said you get to know yourself
Yeah.
this way. I've gotten to know things I didn't know about myself. And that's one of them, is that both of the two, I need both of them to play off each other for the weird way that my brain works. Yeah, it is what it is. What about you?
The secret sauce. Um, I'm finding that the longer I'm spending time here instead of going into the office, the longer I'm here, the more I think about the other things I want to do, and the more creative my solutions have become, which I love. I like to problem solve. That's kind of, if I were going to be a superhero, that's what I would want my skill to be, just to, fly in and here's the problem and here's how to fix it. But from stupid little problems, like every time I go for a spice jar, they all tumble, off onto the counter because the thing's too full. Not anymore, by the way.
You solved the problem.
I solved the problem. To not lighting in the studio apparently, but that could be tonight. But yeah, solving problems, and so I'm finding that all of that is a more creative process. It's a more enjoyable process, and I don't resent the time I have to do it because I know I'm going to reap the reward right away.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Well, Cyndi, it has been such a delight to talk with you, and I appreciate so much that you've taken time out of your day to share your wisdom and your bright, happy soul with the rest of us. Where did it go? It's there. It was right there.
thank you, Lyric, for the time. It's always great to see and talk with you as well. So thank you.
All right. Take care. Be safe and well and sane.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment and let's have a conversation. I would also love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel or check out lyrickinard.com, where you can find wonderful art and textile related things. Bye for now.